ජීවිතේ වැඩිපුර ලැබෙන හොඳම දේවල් විඳින්න. දැන් SLT broadband වෙතින් 75% දක්වා වැඩිපුර data සතුට ජනවාරි 1 වෙනිදා සිට ශ්‍රී ලංකා ටෙලිකොම්.
Making headlines first at 9. Crucial talks tonight. While Prime Minister meets UNP parliamentarians, President convenes UPFA parliamentarians to discuss the political crisis. State of limbo. Civil activist warns against current political instability, urges immediate action.
The current crisis that we have, where government seems to be in limbo, in abeyance, is damaging for the country and needs to be resolved.
Breaking point, State Minister Range Bandara hands in his letter of resignation as UNP organizer, cites stepmother's treatment from the UNP. Glorious end, Sri Lanka wins the second T20 in Bangladesh, making a clean sweep across all three formats. In news overseas, tragedy in the skies, all passengers feared dead in Iranian plane crash. Good evening and a warm welcome, bringing you news from across Sri Lanka and around the world on Other Derana 24/7. I'm Indira Yamwath. We begin with the top stories tonight. A special meeting held at the President's house between President Maithripala Sirisena, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and Speaker Karu Jayasuriya concluded a short while ago. It is reported that a decisive meeting took place on the current political situation of the country. We will bring you more details on the matters discussed at the meeting as soon as developments are reported to our studios here in Colombo. Meanwhile, another meeting commenced just after previous meetings. The second meeting, which is currently underway, is headed by President Maithripala Sirisena with the participation of senior ministers representing the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. We promise to bring you more details as and when the developing story is updated. Meanwhile, yet another meeting is to be held shortly at the Temple Trees with the participation of parliamentarians representing the United National Party. Our reporters say Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe is to arrive at the premises shortly. We'll bring you more details on the meeting. We'll keep you updated on the developments from the political discussions underway. We move on to your other stories. Lands and Parliamentary Reforms Minister Gayantha Karunatilaka says the government should understand the message given by the people at the local authorities election and immediately attend to make necessary changes. Minister Karunatilaka made these remarks speaking to media following an event held in Kandy, while stressing that the government will continue as per the mandate given by the general public on the 8th of January 2015.
There is no instability within the government. The President, the Prime Minister and the entire government are working in line with the mandate given by the people. But people have given us a good message and we need to understand that message properly, especially in the areas where we need to rectify our mistakes. There are places where changes are urgently needed. We're rather fortunate because the people sent us this message early. Had we waited too long, the situation could have worsened. We will make all arrangements to continue as a government that is loved by the people.
Well, a special discussion took place at the UNP headquarters this morning. Our sources say that there was heated argument during the discussion. Let's take a look at how the events unfolded this morning.
Parliamentarians representing the United National Party held discussions at the party headquarters, Sirikota, in Colombo today. The MP stated that they held discussions pertaining to the local authorities election. General Secretary of the UNP, Kabir Hashim, expressed his views to media following the hour-long discussion.
We discussed criteria pertaining to elected members of the party during the election. We decided to appoint a 5-member committee which will make a final decision on these members.
Meanwhile, journalists also questioned other parliamentarians who participated in the discussions.
There's no problem within the UNP, but the SLFP members who are with the president should have the strength to continue with the unity government. You telecasted me on TV saying I wore blue shirt. I mean, what is this? My blood is green, just as the colour of the UNP. We are with the party because we accept the fundamentals of the UNP. We aren't shallow people who would betray the party by switching in favour of ministerial positions. There is a need to make structural and radical changes within the party. There is a lot of love for me. The president always calls me and I have been asked to participate in cabinet meetings as well. I've become a peacemaking dove. I told him that if I am at least given the Deputy Minister's position in the Ministry of Law and Order, I will ensure that all the responsible are jailed. All 106 members of the UNP are sticking together. We're leaving happily because we have our government. This was not a normal local authorities election because 80% of eligible voters cast their vote. There should be respect for this outcome.
State Minister Sujiva Senasinghe and Parliamentarian Buddhika Patirana, both of whom represent the UNP, did not participate in these discussions today. Responding to questions by other Derana, State Minister Sujiva Senasinghe stated that he was unaware of the relevant discussions. The State Minister went on to say that he, however, is invited for the meeting, which is to be held tonight. Meanwhile, political sources reported of a heated situation at the UNP headquarters this morning. According to sources, although parliamentarians were summoned to discuss the local authorities election, they were later pressed by senior members of the party to sign a letter regarding an internal issue of the UNP. Certain UNP parliamentarians have strongly responded against the request by saying such demands that violates the party's democracy should not be made. They had left the premises in protest.
Meanwhile, parliamentarian Dinesh Gunawardena said that a group of UNP MPs are set to extend their support to the joint opposition.
Representing the joint opposition, MP Dinesh Gunawardena visited the residence of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa today.
We will convene a meeting at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow with our group of MPs. There is a group of MPs. There is no doubt about it. The Prime Minister is saying that he will not step down. He cannot do that. If the government's term comes to an end, then a new Prime Minister will be appointed. We can. This will be shown when the time comes.
Meanwhile, several representatives from the joint opposition commented on the situation prevailing in the national government.
We will not join the government under any circumstance. We will not accept ministerial positions or responsibilities. As the joint opposition, we inform the President that we will sit in the opposition and not allow his government to fall while ensuring that a UNP-led government will not be created. We do not want a situation where the government will be toppled. However, we would like an election. During the election, the President said if all 96 from the UPFS stand by him, he will create a SLFP-led government tomorrow. Now the Parliament will convene tomorrow. We're waiting to see if the President will appoint a Prime Minister from the UPFA and create a new government.
State Minister of Irrigation Palitha Range Bandara today stepped down as the United National Party organiser of the Anamadua electorate. State Minister Bandara handed in his letter of resignation to the General Secretary of the party, Minister Kabir Hashim. Issuing a communique to media, the State Minister made evident that he is disappointed in the party for subjecting him for stepmother's treatment and for failing to recognise his achievements.
In a letter to media, State Minister Palitha Range Bandara says he had to step into an entirely different political process in 2015. He also says that after his appointment as the State Minister of Skills Development and Vocational Training, he was idle for nearly 1.5 years. While saying that the Skills Development and Vocational Training Ministry consists of 12 institutions, the State Minister made evident that none of his projects were given approval and he was not given a subject to look into within ministry. The State Minister went on to say that certain powerful members of the UNP attempted to assassinate him and the party failed to give him due backing. Concluding the letter, State Minister says that even though his letter of resignation was rejected by the party's General Secretary, his intentions remain the same.
Chairman of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna insists that the current government resign as the recent election results indicate. The government has lost the people's mandate. He made the remark during a meeting held with the chief incumbent of Gatabay Rajopavanarama Temple yesterday.
Chairman of Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Professor G.L. Piris, met with the chief incumbent of the Gatabay Rajopavanarama Temple, Venerable Kappitiyagoda Sirivimala yesterday.
This is a very clear mandate. The government should resign. It actually doesn't have the mandate to govern the country anymore. The government isn't legal. Its MPs have lost elections. They've given ministerial positions to those who lost. They brought back 9 people through the national list who were rejected by the public. Some of these people hold prominent ministerial positions. One of them was used to sell off the Hambantota port. For the first time in history, they lost the Attanagala electorate as a result of this crass act which goes against principles. Attanagala never lost an election. It's good that you aren't assuming any responsibilities at the moment. You can't govern a corrupt and destroyed government. People cast their votes for former President Mahinda Rajapaksa and not for any other candidate.
The current political situation continues to make headlines as well as to draw views and opinion from catalysts in the political sphere. We take a look.
The President said he is prepared to form an SLFP-led government if everyone in the UPFA come together. We're waiting for the President to make a decision. President Maithripala Sirisena has realised the damage caused by the Prime Minister, which has now left the country in a pathetic state. The Prime Minister should be removed within a short period. The leaders of good governance has created instability in this country. The removal of a Prime Minister is not a big task. Prime Minister, please step down from your post and hand over the government. We believe it is better to do so to the ones who are capable. Ranil Wickremesinghe says that according to the constitution, he is the Prime Minister. But the President's side says that they will make Nimal Siripal de Silva the Prime Minister. So is it Ranil or Nimal? Who is the Prime Minister? The country is in a state of instability. If it continues this way, then much harm will be done to this country. Leaders must think about this.
Executive Director of the Centre for Policy Alternatives, Dr. Pakisoti Saramamuthu, states that the current political state is damaging for the country and it should be resolved immediately. Dr. Saramamuthu made this comment speaking to First at 9 today.
Currently, the sense of crisis is defined in terms of who is to lead the government, who is to be the Prime Minister, what will be the composition of the government. I think these are issues for Parliament to decide. Constitution, with all its amendments, in particular the 19th Amendment, is very clear. At the end of the day, the relationship between the executive and the legislature has been recalibrated with the 19th Amendment, and the issue of who is going to command the confidence of the House, which is essentially what the Prime Minister has to have, is something that Parliament must decide. Likewise, I would argue, the leadership of any political party is the business of that political party. The current crisis that we have, where government seems to be in limbo, in abeyance, is damaging for the country and needs to be resolved as a matter of the utmost urgency.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
Welcome back. Before we go into business news, we have a story from Kuliapitiya. The Kuliapitiya-based hospital successfully performed its first operation on a thyroid gland without resorting to an external incision. The recent surgery is the first such operation to be performed in the country.
The operation, or transoral laparoscopic thyroidectomy, was performed on a 60-year-old woman residing in the area of Udabaddawa in Kuliapitiya. The woman, after being put under anesthesia, underwent the operation for 4 hours to remove the inflamed thyroid gland. This is only the 4th such operation conducted in the whole of South Asia. The operation was performed by a group of specialist physicians led by Kuliapitiya Base Hospital's Dr. I.S. Yaddehige, along with the nursing staff and junior staff. The doctor stated that the woman is now recovering without any signs of complications. ENT specialist Dr. Rizni Sakaf had this to say following the operation.
Most of the time, the thyroidectomy is done by the external cut of the neck, where the patient is going to have some pain and there are some cosmetic reasons. Today we have performed this surgery through the mouth. There are no any external cuts or external injuries. Most of the time these type of surgeries are done in the European countries, and I think there are very few Asian countries, probably according to my knowledge, maybe just 2 or 3 countries would be doing this sort of surgery. So I think it's a big win for Sri Lanka.
In your business stories, Parliamentarian Bandula Gunawardena urges the President and the Central Bank to bring about stringent action to manage the trickle-down effect on debt repayment due to rupee depreciation. Speaking to reporters in Colombo today, Parliamentarian Gunawardena referred to the situation as one that is leading up to an economic tragedy.
The Sri Lankan rupee traded at 131 against the US dollar when this government took over in January 2015. Today, the rupee has devalued to a record 157 against the dollar. That is a depreciation of 26 rupees in 3 years. Due to the current economic policies, Sri Lanka is blacklisted internationally, while amendments to the Exchange Control Act has enabled a free flow of money to and from the country without any supervision. We will not be able to save this economy if we allow the rupee to depreciate at this rate. The outstanding debt settlement has enlarged as a result of rupee devaluation. This can be an economic tragedy. Therefore, the President as well as the Central Bank should interfere to manage this crisis and take immediate action to save the country's economy, banking system and manage debt commitments.
The Central Bank Governor Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy says although the Sri Lankan rupee has depreciated by 2% throughout 2017, there remains signs of cautious satisfaction that the economy is stabilizing. The governor, however, emphasized the need for political stability if the country is to achieve further economic growth.
Last year, the currency depreciated by 2% through the year, and there has been a correction in the real effective exchange rate. So if you look at all the indicators, there were grounds for cautious satisfaction that the economy was stabilizing quite nicely. As growth has disappointed, there are signs that in the forward-looking indicators, if you look at the business outlook survey, they were negative, that is reading of below 100 throughout 2017. But the first quarter of 2018, the outlook surveys indicate a positive reading, that is above 100. And if you look at sales, if you look at investment, if you look at anticipated demand, all those have now gone into positive territory, which is encouraging in terms of performance of the business sector going forward. Now, for all that to continue and materialize to an even better outcome, the country needs political stability.
Meanwhile, the governor commented on Sri Lanka being listed on the Financial Action Task Force's compliance document, also known as the Grey List.
You know, this is complex in the sense that there are several government ministries and departments which are involved. Now, I think we can't get away from the fact that we should have done better. I'm not saying, we shouldn't have got into this situation. But now we have got an action plan and we are working in a very concerted way to put it right.
A roundtable conference under the theme Iran and the Indian Ocean in the 21st Century was held in Colombo recently, where panelists discussed regional security issues and ways in which tourism could be promoted from Iran to Sri Lanka and vice versa. The roundtable saw the participation of Director General of Strategic Council on Foreign Relations in Iran, Dr. Abdul Reza Faraji Rad, and the Iranian Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Mohammad Zairi Amirani, among representatives of local think tank and academic institutions. The deliberation was organized by the Pathfinder Foundation together with the Embassy of Iran and the Strategic Council for Foreign Relations of Iran.
in Sri Lanka because in the geographical location like presentations they have made and okay. I will.
Relation with India, you have relation with some other countries, maybe you have.
And market analysts expect moderate market activity and low turnover during the new trading week. During the trading week concluded on Friday, the SPI and the S&P SL20 lost 0.13% and 0.67% respectively, while recording an average daily turnover of 716 million rupees. We have Amanda Lokugamage from First Capital Holdings for stock market forecast for the new week.
With political uncertainty likely to continue on to the coming week, we expect the market participant to be on the sideline as we saw over the last couple of days as well. We expect turnover and activity to be moderate with all segments, retail, high net worth, institutional and foreign. We expect investors to concentrate on blue chip counters while bargain hunting is likely to be on counters with stronger earnings as the earnings season is ongoing.
Moving on to some international business stories, India's state Punjab lender, or rather run lender, Punjab National Bank says it has been the victim of a $1.77 million fraud. India's federal police detained 2 of its employees in a fast widening probe into the country's biggest ever bank scam.
As of March 2017, banks had extended loans and guarantees worth 166.32 billion rupees to companies tied to billionaire jeweler Nirav Modi and his uncle Mehul Choksey. Since then, the loans and guarantees would have increased over the past year, and the total hit to Indian banks may well exceed $3 billion, according to an internal note prepared by the tax authority on its preliminary investigation into India's biggest bank fraud case. According to a complaint by PNB, the biggest fraud in Indian banking history involved 2 junior officials at a Mumbai bank branch issuing letters of undertaking to firms linked to Modi and Choksey for them to obtain credit from overseas branches of other Indian lenders. The arrest came 2 days after India's second largest state-run lender said it had been hit by massive fraud, sending its share price tumbling.
And the United States has rejected a proposed merger between the Chicago Stock Exchange and a Chinese-linked investor group. The decision comes after more than 2 years of reviews by officials. The tie-up was initially approved by the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, pending further approval by the Securities and Exchange Commission. But U.S. politicians, including President Donald Trump, have said letting a Chinese firm invest in a U.S. exchange was a bad idea. The exchange, which handles just 0.5% of U.S. stocks trades, had said the deal would have provided the exchange with vital capital.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Making headlines from news overseas, 66 people are suspected to be dead in a passenger plane crash in Iran today. Flight EP3704 of the Aseman Airlines en route from Tehran to southwestern city of Yasuji came down in the Zagros mountains of the central Iran. It had disappeared from radar about an hour after takeoff. 60 passengers, 2 security guards, 2 flight attendants, the pilot and co-pilot were on board the flight. Bad weather hampered rescue efforts, resulting in emergency teams having to travel to the crash site by land rather than using a helicopter. And in the US, President Donald Trump rebuked the FBI for missing signals before Wednesday's school shooting in Florida. The FBI admitted on Friday that it received a tip-off in early January about the suspected shooter but failed to act. Trump's tweet is, however, overshadowed by strong comments from student survivors about gun control in the United States.
On February 14, 17 people were killed after an expert student went on a shooting rampage at his former high school in Florida. 2 days after the shooting, the FBI admitted it received a chilling warning in January from a tipster who said 19-year-old Nicholas Cruz could be planning a mass shooting, but those agents failed to follow up. In his tweet today, Trump wrote, quote, "Very sad that the FBI missed all of the many signals sent out by the Florida school shooter. This is not acceptable," unquote. He further tweeted that the agency was spending too much time trying to prove Russian collusion with the Trump campaign when there is no collusion. The killing sparked protests as thousands of angry students, parents, teachers and neighbors of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School called out to US President Donald Trump, demanding immediate action be taken on gun control legislation, insisting they would not relent until their demands were met.
We know that they are claiming that there are mental health issues, but we need to pay attention to the fact that this isn't just a mental health issue. It doesn't matter because I already know. $30 million! And divided by the number of gunshot victims in the United States in the 1.5.
On to an update on Friday's earthquake that hit Mexico. A military helicopter surveying damages from the earthquake crashed yesterday, taking the lives of 14 people on the ground, including 2 children and a baby. The helicopter crashed in a small town in the southern state of Oaxaca, where the earthquake caused most damages on Friday.
The helicopter assessing the damages from Friday's earthquake in Mexico carried the country's interior minister and the governor of the southwest Oaxaca state, but neither was hurt in the crash. Officials said the military helicopter crashed on top of several vans carrying earthquake survivors in a field while trying to land in the village of Santiago Jamiltepec. 14 were killed on the ground while 15 other people were injured from the accident. Witnesses say the village had been affected by a power cut and it was dark when the helicopter approached to land, but the interior minister said that the pilot lost control. Meanwhile, no deaths were reported from Friday's 7.2 magnitude quake that left nearly 1 million homes and businesses without power.
We have more international news in brief.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau arrived in New Delhi yesterday for a 7-day visit to boost bilateral ties, during which he is to hold talks with his Indian counterpart Narendra Modi. With 1.4 million Indian origin citizens residing in Canada, this visit is of importance to boost his outreach among the Indians in his country. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu launched a stinging attack on Iran, telling a security conference in Munich that Iran is the greatest threat to the world, adding that the 2015 Iran nuclear deal had only unleashed a dangerous Iranian tiger. Yesterday, Iran's President Hassan Rouhani said that his government would adhere to commitments under its 2015 International Nuclear Agreement, pledging to limit its nuclear activities in return for the lifting of many sanctions. 2 people died and another was injured after an explosion at an oilseed factory in northern France. The company said the causes of the accident remain unclear and that it was too early to say when production would resume. Meanwhile, a fire broke out at one of the most important and sacred shrines in Tibetan Buddhism, the Jokhang Monastery in Lhasa. Footage posted online showed flames billowing from the roof of the monastery. The blaze was soon put out and no casualties were reported.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Sri Lanka today thrashed Bangladesh by 75 runs in the second and last T20 international and wrapped up a series in style. With the series victory, the visitors ensured they made a clean sweep of the tour across all 3 formats. Sri Lanka amassed their highest total against Bangladesh in the format by putting up a mammoth 210 runs with a loss of 4 wickets.
Bangladesh won the toss and invited Sri Lanka to bat first. Sri Lankan batsmen were on form once again as they scored 210 runs for the loss of 4 wickets. Opening pair Kusal Mendis and Danushka Gunatilaka built a 98-run partnership for the first wicket. Gunatilaka departed for 42 as he was caught by Tamim Iqbal. And at the other end, Kusal Mendy scored his second half century but was later dismissed for 70. Thisara Pereira also unleashed his monstrous hitting as he scored 31 of 17 balls. Following in the footsteps of Pereira, Dasun Shanaka too scored a quick 30 of just 11 deliveries to push Sri Lanka towards 210 for the loss of 4 wickets. In reply, Bangladesh struggled throughout their innings and suffered from lack of big partnerships. Skipper Mahamadullah was the highest scorer for Bangladesh with 41, while many of their players could only master single-digit scores. Shahan Madhusankar and Danushka Gunatilaka grabbed 2 scalps each. Kusal Mendy was awarded the man of the match for his performance with the bat.
And this was stumped. So that was all over. that was a bit of a copy. Victorious Sri Lankans, and they will remember this moment. It's a very
On to rugby now. Kandy Sports Club once again made a massive victory in their first appearance at the Clifford Cup as they managed to topple the Air Force team 53-14.
All eyes were on Kandy Sports Club as they returned for the knockouts after winning the Rugby League. They locked horns with Sri Lanka Air Force at the Parliamentary Stadium. From start, Kandy dominated the match and in the first half mastered a score of 26 points while Sri Lanka Air Force had no luck. Continuing their momentum into the second half, Kandy scored 27 more points, extending their total to 53, while included 8 tries, 5 conversions and a penalty. Air Force could only score 14 points with 2 tries and 2 conversions.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
And we have the update for the weather forecast for the next 24 hours with Chinala Fernando at the Weather Centre.
A very good evening and welcome to Forecast First. Starting on with your temperatures for tomorrow, they are to vary between 17 and 31 degrees Celsius with the lowest yet again expected in the Central Hills. Well, looking at the map, a low pressure zone is set to form from the Kandy district and will gradually disappear. Well, the northern half of the country, including Jaffna, Mana, Vaunia and Trincomalee, will experience continuous sunshine. Coming a bit down, Negombo, Kandy, Colombo, Hambantota will also experience a sunny weather. But Matara in particular will experience wet weather. That's all we have from the Weather Centre tonight. Up next is your City by City forecast.
Well, we take a look at the developing story tonight from the political arena. Discussions at the President's official residence and the Temple Trees are underway. UPFA parliamentarians are meeting with President Maithripala Sirisena at the President's official residence to discuss the current political situation. And also the Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe is meeting with UNP parliamentarians after meeting President Maithripala Sirisena a few hours ago along with Speaker Karu Jayasuriya. Other Derana 24/7 will keep you updated on the developments. Do join us at our live 10 o'clock news bulletin. That's all from First at 9. But before we go, we'd like to take you to China, where the 24th Zhejiang Lantern Show kicked off brightly in the Sichuan province. More than 130 sets of lanterns in various sizes and colors featuring Chinese elements are on display at the show. Zhejiang Lantern Show annually receives over 2 million domestic and foreign visitors. Enjoy the evening. Good night.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.